Well, after a big weekend at Wembley Stadium, we are not done yet because we got a bash in Berlin on the horizon. Top rope takes. We're back again. I'm Jason along with Will. Will, what a weekend in wrestling. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's been a busy weekend, not just in wrestling, but for us as well. That's why we're
Yeah,
dropping this episode a little late.
just
We
a
had
little bit.
Jason over here hitting up the Childish Gambino concert. I want
That's
to ask
true.
right off the bat, how was that?
Yeah, we're asking all hard questions right at the top. It was not a hard question. It was great. I loved it. He's a great performer live. So I recommend if you have the chance to see him, do it.
Yeah, I really did enjoy his last album. It's a shame I wasn't able to get out there. But
Mhm.
yeah, so you were busy then. I was doing paintball and I was working. I first time doing paintball in over like 5, 6 years maybe.
I
And
have not done
yeah.
paintball since I was like a kid in middle school for like my
Yeah.
one friend's birthday party.
I was about to say like it was for my friend's birthday party, and all
Mhm.
of us were in the same boat. We're like, we haven't done this since middle school, high school,
Yeah,
and we all came out there. And my friend was like the only one who's like he has like high tech pro paintball guns. It was just like everyone being like, "Can I please be on your team so I don't
yeah,
get lit
right.
up?"
Yeah, just don't aim away from the face.
But yeah, no, that was fun. But yeah, we just our schedules weren't aligning throughout the week. But
Yes,
finally, we're here to talk wrestling
we are
today.
here. And what a week it was. We had, as we had previously mentioned, All In Wembley, which was a great show. We're going to talk about that. Bash in Berlin coming up soon. We got our official predictions coming your way. Some stuff that happened on Dynamite, some stuff happened on Raw.
Yeah, next week already we got all out. So we're like back to back to back, just
Mm,
big shows one after another. So
yeah,
we're loaded up.
we are loaded up. All right, let's get right into it. Will, what's the headline on this beautiful morning?
I think we go down with the Bash in Berlin predictions. Let's run down that full card. It's only
Okay.
5 matches this week, and it's going to be going down tomorrow during the afternoon. I will
Mm,
say after All In, I am loving the afternoon shows. I liked it like last year when they were going international. I just like having a nice afternoon. You wake up, you get your breakfast in, at least
mm,
for us East Coast people.
that's
You
true.
get your breakfast in, you get going, and then boom, you get some wrestling, and then you still have the rest of the day to go and hang out with your friends. I always hated
Right.
when like I'd have to, meet up with my boys, but then it'd be during a pay-per-view, so I'd have to miss it and then just catch it tomorrow. At
Right.
least or not tomorrow, but like the next day. But at
Yeah.
least for tomorrow, I could go in, watch the show, and then a couple of buddies of mine are going out. So I feel like afternoon shows are the sweet spot for wrestling. Loved it for All In this past weekend. I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. Let's go down this card.
All right. Where should we start, Will?
I'm going, let's do the women's tag match. We got the
Okay.
Unholy Union, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, taking
Mm-hmm.
on Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, also known as the Power Buff Girls.
Oh, is that
Uh,
official now?
I don't know. I was just a name
Oh,
being thrown around there,
I
but
love that. That's great.
let's do it. And they're wrestling for the tag team championships, looking to regain their titles. Obviously, they lost at Clash at the Castle. They've been working
Mm-hmm.
towards this rematch, 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think's going down here?
This is actually a tough one to call. I think because they're in Europe, um, I don't know what. There doesn't seem to be a clear creative direction for either outcome. Um, so I don't think. I think we're gonna hold off on the Jade Cargill presumably heel turn. I think that's gonna be closer to WrestleMania. So my official prediction is because they're in Europe, I believe that Isla Dawn and Alba Fire will retain the titles. And I think it does more for them because I don't think Bianca and Jade are big enough stars that if they have a story, they don't need titles. So but there's no real clear direction. But just because they're in Europe, I'm gonna give the European women a big victory.
All right. Well, I'm gonna disagree right off the bat, which is good because I
Good.
feel like we agreed too much on the all-in predictions.
Oh, we were right for
Uh,
most of them.
we were. I think we did. We had a pretty good record, but for this one, I'm gonna go Bianca and Jade. I still think there's legs for this tag team, and I think the Unholy Union really just had the title so they could get that big hometown win. I definitely could see an outcome where the Unholy Union win because they obviously just added Blair
Mm,
Davenport into the mix. She could get involved somehow and
yeah.
cost uh Jade and Bianca the shot at the titles. But I just think Bianca and Jade should win this, and then that way you could have another tag team that you could put over in their loss. That would then lead to the breakup between Bianca and Jade.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I like I said, this one's kind of hard to predict because there's no clear direction either way. I think damage control is next up as far as like probably getting a run with the titles again. Io and Kyrie seem to be
Yeah.
doing well in Raw, and they don't really have it. Like they're not going to get the main title belts either anytime soon. So I think if it was me, I would have the European ladies get a win here in Berlin and then drop it to damage control.
I think here's how I would book it because I do think Bianca and Jade are going to win because I would like to see Bianca and Jade then go after, or I don't know if they would go after, but I'd like to see them take on Tiffany and Naya
Ooh,
for the titles. They retain against them, but one of them pins Naya, whether Bianca or Jade. They get the singles title shot off that, but then that could also start to sow in seeds of the breakup. Like, oh wait, you got the title shot because you pinned Naya, but I was also a
yeah,
part of the team. Maybe I should get a shot
you might
too.
be on something there.
Yeah, I think that would
I
be an
love it.
interesting little program there. So that's why I think I'm going to go with Bianca and Jade.
Okay, you might have convinced me, but I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stick with it.
Let's do it.
Alrighty. After that, want to go to
Let's do Punk and Drew because
Punk
you
and
know what? You know
Drew.
me. You know me.
I do know you. You
The big
love
old CM Punk mark over
strap
here.
match. What do we feel? How we feel about a strap match?
I think CM Punk is familiar with being tied to another opponent
That is
in
not
recent
where I thought
memory.
this was going, but yeah.
But I do think CM Punk's going to get the win here to even up the series. He's the one who introduced the stipulation. It would kind of be lame if he
Yeah.
lost. And also, what's great about the strap match, even though I'm kind of against the strap match in most
Right.
scenarios, it doesn't directly involve you pinning or submitting someone. It's just
Yeah.
about touching the corners. So CM Punk can get the win here, and Drew can still look strong and still have an out. Basically, like you still never
Yes.
pinned me or submitted me, which Drew did
Yeah.
against CM Punk, even though Seth Rollins was the special guest referee, and then that can come to a head in their rubber match at Bad Blood, which I think
Yes.
everyone speculates will be Hell in a Cell, but we'll
Hell
see.
yes. I just I agree CM Punk is likely to win because to even up the series. I think it's just weird because CM Punk is, I believe, this much smaller man. It's just a weird visual for me to think about him dragging Drew McIntyre to each corner. Um, so I'm not sure how we get to this finish because I don't think it's just going to be like a CM Punk is so overwhelmingly better that he like knocks out Drew McIntyre and incapacitates his opponent, as the kids used to say. Um, yeah, I agree CM Punk's going to win, but I'm very confused in the finish.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it turns out because I could also like, even though I do think Punk's winning, I could see a scenario where Drew gets another like sneaky win. And that's the other thing. The reason why it's more unpredictable is because
Mm,
Drew could get a win and Punk could still have the claim of like, you've never really beaten me. Like it took, the referee being down at SummerSlam. It took whatever nefarious means he'll use in a
right.
strap match, and then that's when it comes to a head. But I still think it would make more sense if they just even up the series.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Punk needs to win here. Um, yeah, okay.
Let's do Terror Twins.
Ooh.
This new little duo of Damian
All
Priest and Rhea Ripley,
rise.
who are still, kind of doing Judgment Day stuff against the
Yeah.
new Judgment Day,
Mm.
Dirty Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan.
Well, Liv got the big win at SummerSlam, which we expected. I think, hmm. I guess, honestly, this is another could go either way. I think you need to give the baby faces a big win again to not look like complete losers because they haven't been doing too much on TV other than chasing them around. Dom and Liv have really been the star of this story. I think I'm gonna go with the baby faces getting a big win in Berlin. What say you?
I think, yeah, this is definitely the toughest, I'd say, to predict. It could go either way. But I think, yeah, the likely scenario, baby faces win. Rhea Ripley pinning Liv Morgan, so that
Mm,
it kind of leads into another
yeah,
title shot. But I will say, I think the Judgment Day, this new Judgment Day, kind of needs something big
yeah,
to kind of bolster them, which is why I wouldn't be surprised if they got the win as well in some
right.
sort of crazy fashion. And you could still build to that Rhea
Mhm.
Ripley Liv Morgan
Yeah,
match. But I just think it makes more sense for the babyface to win, and then that way it can lead to Rhea and Liv, and then you also build up Damian Priest and Finn Balor, which I think is the main match.
right.
Which
Yeah,
then I think Finn could then win that match, and then that's how you build up the new Judgment Day. Because like if you wanted to, you could have Priest pin Dominic, and then Liv doesn't lose anything, and you could still
yeah,
have a claim for Rhea to get to the title. So we'll see.
yeah. I agree that they do need something big. I wonder how Finn is going to get involved here. I kind of like the fact that the show is relatively unpredictable. Like it could go. I have no answers. Felt like SummerSlam was pretty like, and maybe that's the sign of good booking, right? Is because SummerSlam was like a destination pay per view where like a lot of stories were culminating here, whereas this is Bash and Berlin show very much feels on the vein of like it's a transitional show to get us to the end game of a lot of these programs. So for that reason, I think it's actually made Bash Berlin more interesting because I don't know what direction any of these stories are heading in. I so just to recap, yeah, I do believe Damien and Rhea are going to get the win here. I think that's important for them to get that. How Finn Balor and the rest of the Judgment Day play a factor in that win, I don't know, but I agree with you that Bad Blood is likely to be Damien Priest, Finn Balor, Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, and yeah, I definitely I could see. I think the babyface need a big win.
100% agree.
Well, right for the is it time for the world title already?
Yeah, it's not. We got two world title matches. I'm curious to see if they add anything on this show, but I think 5 matches, just a solid
Yeah,
card. That's kind of what these B show pay per views have kind
right.
of been for WWE. So I
Uh,
think we're set on this.
all right, so let's talk about the one that I believe, in my opinion, is the least interesting, which
Okay.
is Cody Rhodes defending the WWE Universal Championship, undisputed Universal Championship. I believe is the language.
Undisputed. This is just Wikipedia here, but undisputed WWE championship. I think they've dropped the Universal completely.
Good, good, because it was horrible,
Yeah,
and
I agree there.
yeah, okay, so Cody defending against KO in this story of KO being like, "Oh, poor me doesn't deserve a title shot, but I'm going to give it my best effort because you're my buddy, Cody Rhodes, and I won't turn on you, Cody Rhodes, even though I've turned on every other partner and friend I've had in the last 10 years, but not you, Cody Rhodes. I won't do that. That's not happening. No, no, no." Um, I mean, Code's retaining, but is it clean? Is KO? I think the finish of this is like something along the lines of like ref is down, KO has like a chair or something, and he's like, is he gonna take the cheap way out? Is he gonna go back? Is he gonna give in to his old ways and like hit Cody with a chair or something to get the win the title? And I don't think he's gonna do it, but I think it'll cost him, and I think that's kind of the angle that KO goes from here, where it's like he needs to find that enterprise fighter again. But I other than that, I don't see anything. Well, does Bloodline get involved in this? Is the question.
Mm, I mean, maybe. I mean, it would be nice to have a presence
Yeah.
for the bloodline on the show. I will say, I think you're kind of underselling the feud a bit because I think, given what it is, and given that everyone kind of sees Cody Rhodes retaining, I think they've done a good job performance wise. At least Kevin Owens has, of just being like, you know, I don't know if I really deserve this title shot. I don't know if this is kind of something I want, but it's kind of like it's almost patronizing that he's even getting the title shot because he's genuinely just wants to help out Cody take on the bloodline. He wasn't doing this to try to get a title shot, but Cody
Right.
insisted on giving him the title shot.
Right.
So it does feel like there's a bit more nuance there than some of his like previous feuds where he's turned on people.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're pretty spot on there. The only change I would make is I think it's going to be the championship. Like he's going to look at the championship and be like,
Yeah,
"Is this what I have to do to win the
like
championship?"
hit him with it.
No, yeah, exactly. But then he'll be like, "No, don't want to do it." Cody hits
Mm,
him with the crossroads or something,
yeah,
and then we'll go on from there. But I think as long as they do something like that or something where Kevin Owens is kind of calling his character into question,
mm,
then it'll be a good match because I think that's where this match is going to excel. It's not about the drama of is Kevin Owens going to win the title because I don't think anyone really believes that.
yeah.
But it's the drama of is Kevin Owens going to go to that place to try to dig deep and win this title? As long as we get some sort of conflict like that, I think it will advance the story well and maybe lead to something a little more interesting in this Cody Rhodes Kevin Owens story.
Just Kevin Owens turn on Cody Rhodes.
No, I think we're both in agreement that it'll be like he'll be conflicted, but ultimately he'll put it away.
Not just
And
at Berlin though.
oh, uh, you're saying after? Wasn't it Bad Blood? Yeah, no, I think he'll turn in between. I just think there's like, what's the next feud? Like, it's
Right,
gonna be tough
exactly.
to get that next challenger ready. So I think this will be like he loses, it was
Mm,
hard fought, and then he'll be like, wait a second, if I did what I needed to do to win the championship, I would have had it won.
yeah,
And so, and then also holding on to that title. And we saw it on SmackDown. Maybe he's
yeah.
kind of getting a little taste of gold, and that
Ooh,
prize fighter's starting to come back. He's getting that itch again. So we'll see. But I do think ultimately it should lead to a Kevin
would
Owens
certainly
turn.
make a more interesting story if he did than if he
Right.
doesn't, and then he just goes on to feud with like Andrade.
Yeah, it goes in that US title picture scene. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
kind of be lame.
All right, and the main event of Bash in Berlin, we have the world heavyweight champion, the Ring General Gunther, defending against the Legend Killer, the Apex Predator, the Viper, the man who was screwed out of the King of the Ring, Randy Orton, in Berlin. Will the voices be in his head, Will? Will Randy Orton beat Gunther to become the second most prestigious world champion in company history? Or will Gunther retain his title? What say you?
I'm just gonna take the drama out of all that and just say
Yeah.
no, he's not winning. He's not winning this match. Here's the thing: I'm looking. I look. You can't trust Wikipedia all the time, but anytime I look at this, it's interesting. Like it says here, because I thought Orton was permanently on Raw, like even
Mhm.
after this. But it says if Orton wins the championship, he will be transferred to Raw, and Gunther will be transferred to SmackDown.
When did I miss
What?
that?
Did I
Yeah.
miss something? Like, when did this get announced? I was like, Gunther's going to be transferred to SmackDown if he loses. Hey, I don't mind that stipulation because then that's like the only thing where it's like, oh, well, you know what? Cody needs a challenger. If
Yeah.
you want to shift Gunther over right
Right.
away, have him face Cody, you could do that. But I do think Gunther's going to retain. Bash at Berlin. It's kind of his home
Yeah.
continent. I don't what he's from Austria. Like I don't know why
Yes.
they're, but he
So
definitely
they
made his name. He made his name on the independent scene in Germany. So I guess that's
I brought this up the other week
yeah,
because I think it was Randy Orton who was like, "You're German. This is your home. You
yeah.
love Germany." And I was like, "Well, no." And they addressed it on Raw, and I was very happy about it. They were like, "He is Austrian. He was born and raised in Austria. He lives in Austria. He claims Austria, but he wrestled all the time in Germany, and so he's a German legend in the wrestling scene." Because apparently Austria doesn't have that big of a wrestling scene. Go figure.
I guess so. Which
So,
I do think what's interesting though, because we haven't seen like Ilya since that Braun one. I know they announced him in the triple threat. I'm curious to see because he's another guy who made his name
mm,
on the German independent scene. I'd be
mm,
curious, even though he's not German. I'd be
he's
curious to
Russian,
see if
right?
he like maybe confronts Gunther at the end of this match. Maybe I know he's in that IC title picture, but it'd be nice to see like, oh, this could be a match later down the line, even if it's just a stare down
Mm,
and kind of get people excited for that matchup. at some
I,
point in the
it's
future.
it's coming at some point, but I think the close to this show is good. They're standing tall.
All right.
I'm surprised Ilya is not on this card though.
Yeah, me too. I
No.
also am looking forward to how they play off of the King and Queen of the Ring finish
Yeah.
with the shoulders up. I'm sure there'll be a lot of like quick pinfalls at the beginning. They might even try to recreate the shoulder up, but
Mm-hmm.
the other way around. Maybe like Randy gets the 3 count, but Gunther's shoulders are up, and the ref's like, no, 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 like, and
Mm-hmm.
there's like a fake
Mm-hmm.
out. But yeah,
If you could add one match to this card, do you have a match you would love to add?
mm,
Because I have one.
you do.
I do have one.
See, I off the top of my head, no, but I think the lack of Jey Uso presence on the last 2 shows is tough because
Yeah.
he's definitely the one that gets the best crowd reactions, especially going to an international audience. Like they're gonna go, they would go crazy for
Mm.
the Yeet stuff. So I would say something along those lines, or um, yeah, like why not do? I guess Sammy really hasn't been seen. I
Yeah.
don't know. I would have done like Finn and JD versus Sammy and Jay
Yeah. I
if they
think
had built to it better.
if it was me, I would have started this intercontinental stuff a week earlier than we did to get some sort of intercontinental presence on the show. Because I would have loved to have that fatal 4-way match in Berlin where it's Jey Uso, Pete Dunne, and then the winners of the next two.
Yeah, like Ilya and Bronson, like that would have been on fire.
Yeah. So really specifically, I would have loved to gotten Ilya and Pete Dunne one-on-one in Berlin.
Mm,
Two European guys, two European mates, some two good blokes, as the kids say over there.
yeah.
Um, that would have been fire.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They should have done like if they should have done it a week back and then done the fatal 4-way here, give Ilya a big moment at
Yeah,
Bash of Berlin, and then you could do the Bronson Ilya match or the Braun
Braun.
Breaker
Yeah,
Ilya match
yeah,
on a show, and then that way you're not beating
yeah.
Ilya in his hometown,
Mm,
and you still have Braun with the title,
mm.
but you still have Ilya getting his big moment.
Jey Uso could have been on there on the card. You could have done it. You could have done it in Triple H, and you didn't. And you
Yeah.
did.
But it's clearly the NXT takeover formula that he's got going on. The 5 match card, trying to have, give a
Mm.
time to all these matches, let it play out. But with the women's tag team match, I feel like that's not going to go crazy long. So they could have had the fatal 4-way on there and
Yeah,
still made time.
no, they could have done. You could have done it.
Yeah.
All right, and that is Bash in Berlin. So we will know if we're right by this time next week. Um, I think we did pretty well on our all in predictions.
We did. I went back just at the 10 announced matches. I think
Mm.
we went 8 for 10. The only ones that I know we got wrong were
Casino Battle Royal.
yeah, Casino Gauntlet and the 4-way ladder match, but we also didn't know who the wild card was going
Oh,
to
I have thoughts on this. Okay.
be. But before we get to All In, do we
Mm.
have any thoughts on this past Monday's Raw leading into Bash in Berlin? We saw the debut of Uncle Howdy in the ring. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because, you know, we've been talking
Um,
about like what happens when the bell rings. I feel like that's the main conversation around the way. It's
yeah,
like what happens when the bell rings. Uncle Howdy was out there. How do you feel?
I am gonna be honest. I loved Bray Wyatt. This ain't doing it for me. Um, I don't know what it is. It's not connecting the same. I thought it was a mistake to have Uncle Howdy in the ring. I think you should have. I thought the story dictated Bo Dallas wrestle, and you save Uncle Howdy for something more big, I guess, something bigger. Because Uncle Howdy arbitrarily wrestling on a random Raw. I mean, I get it was against Gable. That's like the culmination of a big story there, but
It was also a year after his brother's passing,
Yes,
so it's kind of they
yes,
kind of wanted it to line up with that.
right. I get it. It's missing something for me. I couldn't tell you what it is. I think for me, I understand that it's all a big tribute to Bray Wyatt and his actual real life brother who passed away, and so that there's some real heavy emotional ties to the story. I think they are doing themselves a disservice by copy pasting what he did and hoping it's going to get over in the same way. Because yes, Bo Dallas is the brother of Bray Wyatt, but he is not Bray Wyatt. Um, and I think it is, while good intentions to try and carry his legacy forward, this is not going to hit until until Taylor Rotunda figures out what about this is his. What is he going to do that is not just something his brother did? What is he going to do to make it his own? Um, and until that point, it just feels like a cosplay of Bray Wyatt. And I saw that already. I saw that 4 years ago. So it to me, it's not doing anything.
All right, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of split on this because in one sense, I think you're right. I think it is kind of a watered down version of what Bray was doing. And it's hard not to, I mean, he's outright just doing Bray moves. So
Yeah.
it is hard to watch this match and not think about Bray Wyatt.
Mm.
But I think that's kind of the appeal of this is because people just miss Bray Wyatt a lot and they like some sort of presence on
Yeah.
the show. So even if it is a watered down version, people enjoy that. I was just happy with the fact that it wasn't over the top spooky
Mm.
nonsense.
Yeah.
I just as long as they don't go that route going forward and just they have him wrestle in the ring and he puts on decent matches and he could still play into that character and do his Bray Wyatt tribute. I think ultimately there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, though, you're taking a guy who did all that stuff and taking that stuff away, which kind of just makes him seem like another wrestler on the roster. And
Right.
since he doesn't have that same aura that Bray Wyatt had, it does kind of make it feel like, oh, this is just another guy. Like I didn't watch this match thinking, oh my gosh, Uncle Howdy, he could enter the world title picture right now and be a
No.
credible threat.
No.
It was just more of like, okay, he looked good, but they still gave a lot to Chad Gable during this match.
Mm.
And ultimately, I just think this is just going to be kind of like a mid card tribute act. That's kind of what my impression was. Nothing wrong with that, but if the idea was that he was going to be trying to hold up to what Bray Wyatt was doing, I didn't really get that from this match. So
No.
ultimately, I don't want to hate on it because I think this was special for Bo to do. I think he does want to carry on that legacy, but I just hope people don't have the expectation that this is going to be like another Fiend run.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with the good and the bad, but like just that like main event style guy who doesn't get beaten.
It just feels like I know they're brothers, so this analogy is not 100% what like a perfect fit, but it just feels like a little kid dressing up like in his dad's clothes, where you're just like, huh, you get it, you want to be like him, and but like the suit's too big for you, dude. Like, I don't know. It,
We'll see. I'm
yeah,
curious to see if they, because I think there's a lot of cool storyline stuff that you could do centered around the Wyatt Six. And I think that stuff is more intriguing than the in ring stuff anyway. But I just hope they capitalize on that type of stuff and put a focus on that rather than making this like an in ring act that's
yeah,
just tributing Bray Wyatt.
yeah. They also haven't done a good job this entire time explaining why they're going after Chad Gable.
I mean, the family thing, they kind of, it's vague, but I would like to see in future feuds, like they start to dissect the opponents more because they just have like this vague idea of what kind of
Mm-hmm.
targets they go after, just people about who betrayed their family and whatnot. And they do a lot of cryptic messaging, but I would like to see more venom poked at the opponents that they're facing rather than just this overall kind of blanket statement on the targets that they're going to be going after.
Yeah. Anything else from Raw?
Bronson Reed's awesome. Just the
Oh yeah, that
exploding car
spot.
with
Yeah,
Braun Strowman.
that was cool.
Exactly. Another great way to capitalize on Bronson Reed and the angle they did a few weeks ago with Seth Rollins. I hope he wins his triple threat match because I would love to see him in that Intercontinental title picture. And even if he does end up winning, going against Braun Breaker, like
Mhm.
that's going to be a hell of a match. And it's going to be someone where, because of how well they built him up, if they do want to go that direction, I'll be like, wow, they could really, they could throw the title on him the way they've been building him. But it's also like Braun Breaker just got the title. So it'd be like a good matchup to make me think. Whereas with the other three, like I just
Yeah.
wouldn't buy
Right.
like an Ilya or even a Jey Uso beating Braun Breaker this early on.
No, I agree with that, but but for those exact same reasons, I also think you can't do Braun and Bronson because they both need to be
Yeah.
continue to be elevated.
But that's what's also great about the Fatal Four Way. He could be in there, get super over
Yeah.
in that match, and not have to be pinned. So
Right. Right. Um. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a shame that like this whole Bronson stuff hasn't led anywhere yet. Um. Because I really thought he was going to have a match with Seth in Berlin, but Seth is on the shelf for now.
yes, sir. And we'll see when he comes back. I'm curious to see if that's like the direction they go, and
Yeah.
immediately as soon as he comes back. I hope he doesn't just come back and then beat Bronson Reed. That'd kind of be lame to me, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And when he comes back, Bronson needs to win.
Yeah. But yeah, it just depends on when he comes back. Because if he comes back close to WrestleMania season, you're going to want Seth to look pretty good going into whatever program he goes into. Most likely CM Punk. But
fun fact, I remember, I don't know when in the calendar year this was. Do you remember when they went to Australia? Oh, it was Elimination Chamber. It was Perth.
yeah.
I don't remember who Seth wrestled for the world title at that match.
Did he have a match?
I think so.
I think he was he had the Grayson Waller effect. I thought that was
Maybe.
when they announced or when they were leaning the direction of like Cody and Seth versus Rock and Roll.
Gotcha. Anyway, I only bring that up because I believe I remember that Bronson Reed did an interview and he said that he was originally supposed to be facing Seth for the world title there because he's Australian. But it happened to be his wife gave birth. So
Right. A shame.
yeah.
I'm sure they'll be in Australia.
Point
again.
is,
You have
they've
to
been
imagine.
yeah.
That
Point
they'll
is,
be
they've
back
been
there.
planning this feud for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a
Sweet.
little info there.
I don't really have any other thoughts on Raw. We kind of went over the IC title
Yeah.
tournament. We got Pete Dunne and Jey Uso moving on in
Happy to see
there.
Pete Dunne being
I guess.
pushed. Love Pete Dunne. Go Pete Dunne.
Yeah. I will say though, that just my final point before we head into the AEW stuff, I would have liked to see in either Kofi or Woods in the next round of the IC title tournament because I think what their storyline dictated, like especially like I like Pete Dunne. I'm glad to see him getting pushed, but I kind of wanted Woods to win that one. I kind of thought it would be a cool little thing of him getting in there and Kofi being like, yeah, we're going to win the Intercontinental Championship. Like one of us,
I
he's got to
love
win this. And then he's also never won a singles title. So they could have
yeah.
played off that really well into the Fatal Four Way. But I'm sure whatever they do, they'll find a way to push that storyline.
I love the story. I love the storytelling elements that entire thing is doing with Kofi Woods and Odyssey Jones. Like literally, just like the different gear, right? Them quite like visually not on the same page. And Xavier Woods is wearing black, like implying like is Xavier Woods going to turn heel? Is he going to beat up Kofi? Hashtag beat up John Cena.
Yeah, what a throwback. 2016.
Miss AJ. Where's AJ? Where's AJ Styles?
He was
Where are
touring
you?
and he did the European tour, I guess, with Cody and all them. They were just there to
I want
promote Bash in
AJ
Berlin.
Styles versus Joe Hendry on TNA. Make it happen.
Yeah, well, you never know. Maybe we'll have to, predict that too, but we'll see what happens.
All right, that's all I got from Raw.
All right, yeah, let's go over All In because this was a great show, and I think AW kind of needed like a big showing. And
Okay,
they had a great. I thought it was a really fun show. All In. I don't care what anyone says on Twitter, being like, a lot of people just want to throw in their jabs, and I get it. People have their sides. People do it for both ends, but I think just after having a good show, if you're just a wrestling fan, how can you not have enjoyed this show? Even if you have your problems with AEW.
This is what I want to say. We get on this podcast, and I'll just speak for me. I get on this podcast every week, and I talk about all the things I don't like about AEW because they're inconsistent and they just hotshot bookings and they don't really have a ton of story or a whole ton of logic. And that's all valid, and I stand by it. However, AEW does pay per views better than anybody else. AEW pay per views are always 10 out of 10. They know how to book for the big show. They know how to put on great matches, which is their calling cards, where the best wrestle will. And I loved this show was so good. I have questions that we'll get into about their decisions, but as far as an in-ring standpoint, nobody touches AEW. I specifically want to talk about, I mean, maybe we'll talk about it later. But we sat on this podcast a couple weeks ago, and we're like, why the hell is Swerve Strickland and Daniel Bryan the main event of All In? Came out of nowhere, didn't really have a ton of story to back it up. Like Swerve has been feuding with Hangman, but he's wrestling Bryan Danielson for some reason. I don't know. But I have to say, that was some of the most, it felt like one of the biggest matches that in AEW history. They did a great job with it between the video packages and having his family there and the stakes behind it. It felt, you could feel the emotion through the screen. And I thought it was head and shoulders above everything else on the card. And it was a stacked card. But I loved that match. I loved that the energy it brought. I thought it was great. So I need to give credit to AEW for a great show. But that main event, man, that's stuff that's kind that kind of lives forever.
Yeah, I mean, this show top to bottom was just a really fun show to watch, and that main event was incredible. Bryan Danielson's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, and I think he might have went up a spot or two. He might even be my favorite. Sorry, CM Punk, but like,
wow.
I mean, I'm not gonna go that far yet, but he's up there. Man.
Did Over the Limit 2011 mean nothing to you?
2012. See, that's how much of a fan I am. But Bryan Danielson, man, oh man, it's hard not to get emotional seeing him wrestle in front of his kids out there. And I mean, the whole match was just spectacular. The storytelling, like that's the thing. What AEW lacks in like the storytelling leading up to the shows, they do a great job of telling stories in the ring. And that's the thing. Like people will say like, oh, they're just doing flippy doos and the moves don't mean anything. And it's like earlier on the show, you had a match centered around a wrestler being conflicted over a move in Will Ospreay and MJF. So it was just like the fact that people will say that, it's just, like you got to watch the show. They tell the stories in the ring. That's kind of their bread and butter. I do wish that they were better at building up some of the matches on the show, and not that they don't put in an effort. I just think there's a better way of going about it. But with Bryan Danielson and Swerve, especially that go home angle, I don't know. We weren't able to talk about the go home angle where Bryan Danielson came out in Cardiff. He said he was like the best effing wrestler in the world. And I was just like, I was getting all fired up. It's like, what a moment. And for him to win the title here at All In, I mean, it was just special. And that was the weird thing too, is like afterwards, he's like, this is probably my favorite moment wrestling. And it's like, yes, you as a viewer might have liked other moments of Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson in his past. But how can you not see that and be like, yes, this is what he would consider his favorite moment? He was in the ring with his children, with his wife, getting to celebrate with it. I thought it was hilarious.
World title win in Wembley Stadium.
Bryan Danielson, he won the title, and then he was trying to get Buddy to run his arms, but Buddy was just picking up the confetti in the ring. I thought that was hilarious. And then he goes to pick up Buddy and acts like he's going to put him in a Tiger Driver. Everyone was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But yeah, no, it was a really special moment. And there's also a lot of great things. That's not because I think Danielson Swerve, I don't think it's a surprise, but that's probably going to be a match of the year contender for me.
Yeah.
But there's another match on here that I just enjoyed a ton and will probably end up in my top 10 matches when it's all said and done at the end of the year.
Is it okay? What is it?
I loved the Casino Gauntlet match.
Wow,
I thought that was
not
so
where I thought
fun.
You were going.
That match was so fun, dude. Number 3, Nigel McGuinness coming out. Are you kidding me, man? That was so awesome. It was just a great
shape,
throwback
by the way.
there.
Like, he looks like he could be that get signed full time right now.
Awesome. And then when he came out there, you kind of start to think like, wait a second, like you could have him win And then if Bryan Danielson wins, that's how you get the match, Nigel versus Danielson. So now you're starting to think like, okay, maybe Hangman isn't win. Not that even Hangman won, but then you had other great people come out. Zack Sabre Jr. came out
Mhm.
there, and then you had Zack Sabre Jr. and Nigel McGuinness going face to face. They've never wrestled before, right?
I didn't know for certain, but
Yeah. I did because it's almost like two generations of
yeah,
British
yeah.
wrestling coming together. So all these fans were going nuts for that. I loved Okada starting the match with Orange Cassidy and then
Mhm.
doing the hug because they're in chaos, but then he does his Okada face like the
Mhm. Yeah,
little
yeah.
straight face thing. That was very enjoyable. Obviously, you had the debut of Ricochet in
Woohoo!
AEW,
Love
which
Ricochet.
I love Ricochet. And I think people were like, "Oh, we're going to see this whole other side of Ricochet." I think he was just Ricochet, which again, I don't want to downplay that because Ricochet was
Did they
awesome.
expect him to be Prince Puma?
But I don't know what they were expecting, but like, I think there were some people who were maybe a little disappointed that they didn't get something crazy. But I'm like, he just was Ricochet, which is awesome. So good for Ricochet out there.
Because
He
Ricochet,
always looked great. Hangman obviously doing
yeah.
his mean mugging stuff. The only thing I will say that I did not like about this match was the finish. I did not
Oh, yeah.
like, but I think everyone would agree about that because it's like you have a Luchasaurus coming out as Luchasaurus, and you're thinking, all right, this is the moment. This is when he's going to finally turn because they've been doing this. I was at World's End when they did the angle
Ooh.
where Kill Switch was supposed to finally like turn on Christian Cage, but he just gives him the contract, and then Christian
Mhm.
won. So now you're gonna have Christian win. I don't mind like Christian having this title shot because I think there's a lot of fun stuff you could do with it,
He's put in
but
good work. He
it
deserves it.
definitely just like kind of sucked the air out of what was to me like one of the most fun matches I've seen all year.
Yeah, it was weird to have Christian be in both this match and the ladder match. And quite frankly, we just saw Christian in the world title picture against Swerve not too long ago. So I get it's a different challenger now. He's going against Brian Danielson, but
I guess it was the only thing I'll say, but I just didn't like how they went about the finish. But
mm,
at least it wasn't a winner where it was like, okay, so now the main event's obvious. Like where
yeah,
if you had Hangman win, you could kind of be like, oh,
yeah,
it's clearly going to be Swerve. Or if you did have Nigel win, then it's like, oh, well, it's got to be Danielson because there's no way Danielson retires with Nigel having this title shot.
right.
So from that perspective, I think having Christian win was fine. I just wish they had finally pulled the trigger on this turn because if it's not going to be at All In, one of your biggest shows, then when are you doing this turn?
Right. Well, I mean, I think they could do it anytime, to be honest with you. I don't think Kill Switch is big enough of a character that that dictates like a big moment, to be
But that's the
honest.
thing. But like, if you're gonna do it on just some rinky-dink shit, like why not just do it at All In so
Yeah.
you get the biggest reaction, even though it's something that's not
Right.
a crazy storyline. All In would have made it feel bigger
Right. I
than
see
it
what you're
actually
saying.
was. Whereas if they do it on just some random show or even like a random pay per view here in the States, I don't think it would get as much of a reaction, especially coming off of this, where people are just so drained with the storyline.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me, and I agree with you there. But he did, but he Christian won. So good for Christian. He deserves it.
Yeah.
But I agree, the match was fine.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
I don't know. I don't know. I did think yeah, it was I mean, I like the unpredictability of it all, seeing who's going to come in and all that stuff. But I'm not a huge fan of the concept of it itself, of like the pinfall to a finish. That feels silly to me. Um,
I guess so. I just thought I like matches like that. I love the Royal Rumble every year. I just like the
right? Yeah, of
mystery. It's
course.
I think it's just like a fun little concept that they have, and it's
Mhm.
also true to AEW. It makes it unique.
Yeah.
So again, I think, and maybe they should limit it to it, like build up to this kind of match like
Mm,
once a year, and
mm,
maybe do some changes where maybe it's like elimination style, maybe, but that might be too many pins.
yeah.
Or just even do it so that like I wouldn't mind if it was just like a Royal Rumble style, but like you could also pin or submit your opponents, kind of like the Battle Riot in MLW.
Right. 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 All right. What else on this card do you want to talk about? Because I feel like there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to go at. I mean, the women's matches, I feel like kind of were let down. I don't know about what
Um,
you say. I think Mercedes and Britt was kind of like weird, the finish.
yeah,
Uh,
it was a weird finish.
so and I thought they could have, you know, done a little more, but it was just I didn't make Dr. Britt Baker look any stronger. So I'm curious to see where they go with her. And also on Dynamite, they didn't really build to a new challenger with Mercedes. So I'm curious if they just wait till after All Out when the Willow Chris stuff is settled before they move into a program with Mercedes. And then Mariah May and Tony Storm. I mean, I like Tony Storm's performance in this, but I didn't think that match was very special either. I think Mariah May, like it was our point before where like Mariah May had to win. I feel like to
Yes,
just keep this momentum going, but I don't buy her as like
a
that
champion.
top champion yet.
No,
Yeah.
no, I agree. I thought they had a good performance. I thought it was a good match. I thought it was criminal where they put it on the show. Like,
Yeah, they put in the death spot. I was like,
yeah,
okay. Right after the ladder match,
yeah.
first
I think they
second match on
thought
the
Mercedes.
show.
I think most people thought Mercedes and Britt Baker were going to be better, and it wasn't, unfortunately. Um, yeah, I don't know, disappointing stuff.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I'm curious to see what the direction is for both women's championships, but it does feel like Mercedes, even after kind of a poor match, still feels like Mercedes is the top women's champion, even
Yeah,
though she
I
doesn't have the
agree.
world title.
Will, I have to pause it real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought the Sasha, oh excuse me, why Sasha? The Mercedes, Monet, and
Look at this guy.
I know, right? What a name! Just even watch the show. Uh, I thought Mercedes Monet and Britt Baker was very underwhelming. I'll say one other thing about the women's um, division on this card. Why the hell was Jamie Hayter relegated to the pre-show?
Yeah, what the hell was that all about?
What
I
the
mean,
hell?
I'm also not crazy about this whole new Soraya thing.
Oh,
I
that
think,
was cringy.
yeah, I think her being like the unproblematic icon and like them trying to lean into that is
Mm,
just not the wave. Like you should just not have her on the show at that point. Like
yeah,
I know she's a big star, you're probably paying her a lot, but at some point you just got to realize like people don't want to see you. And it is kind of like an issue with AEW
mm.
and their big stars, but at this point this is like a unique case where like she kind of did it to herself.
Well, okay, so I was gonna bring this up. I think you brought it up a couple weeks ago. Does this really have everything to do with her boyfriend Ronnie Radke, or is there more to this?
It's so funny because I did not realize that I did not make the association that her boyfriend was Ronnie Radke. I knew two things. I knew Ronnie Radke was a piece of shit, and I knew that Saraya had a problematic boyfriend. It never connected to me that
Oh,
that was her problematic boyfriend was Ronnie Radke. So now I'm like, oh my god, it all makes sense. Ronnie Radke sucks, and that's why
but
people hate Saraya. And so
is
it
that
makes
why? Is
sense.
that why she's fallen this far?
No, because she's defended Ronnie Radke's like transphobic slander, all that stuff. Like, and also Ronnie Radke's just in general like a clown.
Mm.
So the fact that she like kind of stands by it and isn't willing to like defend it or like defend her point of view if she does have like a different point of view and just be like, oh no, my boyfriend should be able to say whatever he wants. It is kind of
But is that why
like
she's
especially
not?
because that's AEW's audience. Well, dude, think about it. AEW is very much online. Like they
Yeah,
know what's going on the discourse online. So if they see that the online fan base is really not messing with Soraya, they're not going to push her to like anything major. And she's still getting spots on TV. Like she got on the card here for All In,
no, she
but
didn't.
she got on the 0 hour and she had a huge moment at the scrum where she was doing her whole thing, which got her into even more trouble with people online. And the fact that they're even leaning into it shows you how online they are.
Yeah, I think I am such a Soraya fan. Like, how she's fallen so like she's a star, man. She should be pushed as a star. She should be marketed as a star. She's one of the best wrestlers in the women's division. She's one of the best promos. She's a big name. People know who she is. What? I don't. I mean, I get it, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it is what like I could just here's what I truly envision what's going to happen is like she's going to get dropped from AEW. She's going to clean up her act go to WWE, and then she'll be a big star there. And it'll be another thing for people to be like, well, look, AEW just dropped the ball
Yeah.
on Saraya when there's like so much more context added for it. And I will say AEW has dropped the ball on some big stars, but this Saraya situation, I'd be totally understanding if AEW was like, you know what, it's not working out.
Mhm.
You're better off being somewhere else.
You know what? Say what you want
It
about
is what
Ronnie
it is.
Radke, and it's completely valid, and you are entitled to your opinions. But Zombified's a banger.
All right, I'm
So
not. We won't even go there because I can't. But I'm glad you enjoy his music because I do not. So
stop it.
let's. I just want to make one more note on or two more notes actually. Hook defeating Chris Jericho. I mean, I hope they retire this title. I know there's some like, Tony Khan went off on the scrum because someone dares say that the FTW title is a joke.
Mm.
Which, by the way, it isn't it wasn't a joke in the '90s. But when it was brought back in AEW in this past 3-4 years, how can you say it's not a joke? Like it clearly, it's the fifth most important like singles title in their
They
thing
can't
out of
even get their own
five.
messaging correct because it was supposed to be unsanctioned, and now we're talking about it's his third reign, and like we're putting it on paper. Like,
Yeah, and even Taz is acknowledging that. He acknowledged on Twitter that maybe it's run its course. And I mean, even though they did an angle with Roderick Strong on Dynamite, I still think that it's going to get retired sooner than later. I think people realize that it's just not necessary
mm,
in AEW anymore. But I will say, love the moment between Taz and Hook getting that like nice hug and
mm.
Taz getting to do his Taz mission. I thought that was very nice and a very good moment for Hook.
Yeah, it's exactly what it needed to be. Thought it was a good performance from Hook. Um, I think Jericho needs a break. I mean, I'm a fan of the learning tree stuff, but I agree. Like he's been on your screens consistently for 5 years.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
well,
my other note I was going to make was the tag team match. I didn't think it was anything crazy, but after the match, we did get the grizzled young veterans
yes.
there confronting the Young Bucks, also going after the acclaimed and FTR,
Mm-hmm.
kind of adding them to the tag division. I felt like it was good for them to be added to this division because they definitely need tag teams.
Yeah.
It just felt like they were kind of filling in for what should have been the Motor City Machine Guns. Like I feel like they were building to that them coming in and then they weren't able to get the job done. So they're like, all right, who can we get? Well, I guess Grizzled Young Veterans are from, this area. So
Right.
we'll get them on the show. Because they've been in ROH, like they've been around, but
Mm-hmm.
I could see they're gonna get a big spotlight, and I could also see eventually Mason Mansoor getting the call up kind
Oh,
of
okay.
from
Interesting.
ROH to AEW because they need tag teams. This tag team division is so dry right now. The fact
Yeah.
that this was the tag team match and it's just guys that they've had for the past 3-4 years who have kind of gotten stale.
Yeah.
I mean, I love all three. Like, well, that might be a stretch, but I do like a lot of these tag teams that they
Mm-hmm.
have. It's just we've seen them and they've kind of had their run in AEW. I think what made the Acclaim so special like 2 years ago was that they were a fresh tag team in the
Right.
division and everyone was really excited for it. I think we're ready for that next tag team to kind of blow everyone away and go
Yeah.
after the tag titles.
And who is it?
Exactly. Who is it? It should be, and maybe if the grizzled young veterans show up and they're cool, but I don't even think it's them. Like, I think it's got to be something that's like
They're
AEW.
filler.
The reason why it worked so well for the Acclaim was because they were like AEW originals who got over in
Right.
AEW. So they kind of have to find that team, whether it's putting two people together. I even like Swerve and Our Glory. Like, that was kind of a fun team
Yeah.
for a little bit because it was an AEW made team that got over in that sense. So I'm curious to see what other tag teams they could throw out there.
Yeah.
Maybe you do something with like, even if you did like Hook and Shibata, like you could have some fun little interaction. Hook and Joe could easily go after the tag titles. And I would be kind of like, that's kind of a cool
Yeah.
organic
I'd be down for
tag
Hook and
team.
Joe. They both need stuff.
So yeah, and I did like the segments they were doing before Joe got
Mm.
hurt. But
Right.
or Joe, is it Joe hurt or is he filming Twisted Metal? I always get those
I don't know.
confused.
I mean, it
I
might
think
be.
they did like an injury angle, but then like it's really just to have him
Yeah.
record the show. So we'll see. If he comes back, that's what I'd like to see. Hook and Joe go after tag titles, win, and get a cool run for
Yeah.
uh Joe and
I'm
Hook.
all in favor for Hook and Joe. Mark me down.
Hook and Joe. I
Hook
kind of
and
like the sound
Joe.
of that. Hook and Joe. All right.
Speaking of tag teams, there's something else on the show that I want to talk about,
Okay.
and it's this 4-way ladder match for the trios title We didn't know who the mystery team was going to be. It ended up being a team of Pac, Wheeler Yuta, and Claudio Castagnoli. This is, again, I thought this was a great show. I really did. But what the hell is this? Why are Pac all of a sudden associated with the Blackpool Combat Club? I actually think it's a great fit. So let me be very clear. I think that is a perfect place for him to be. But there was no lead up. There's no reason why. Like there was no like on TV. Like why was this happening? What like the story is that he was gonna win it with the Lucha Brothers, but the Lucha Brothers aren't gonna resign, so they just gave him tag titles with two other people. Um, it doesn't make any sense to me, and that's my biggest gripe with AEW is like make it make sense. Give me a reason why logically this is even happening in the first place. It was just hot shotted. They won, and then they won, and then they're champions now, which is again, I think it makes sense for Pac to be in this faction. But give me like some lead up before you just throw the titles on them. That's that.
Yeah, I just thought it was a moment. Like again, like the trios titles kind of have taken a major dip. I feel like since kind of like that first year that they were introduced, it
Well,
definitely didn't have a hot start when
the
the elite
winners were
won it, and
immediately
then
suspended.
yeah, and then they had it stripped. So it was kind of tough for them to get some momentum coming out of that. But I thought it was just a nice moment for Pac. I think that's all it was. It was one, a nice moment for Pac, and two, a way to get the belts off the patriarchy so that it could lead into them their moment at the Casino Gauntlet. But yeah, no, I think at this point the trios titles have just come something that like if they want to throw it on any three people, they could go and do it. Like I wouldn't be surprised. We mentioned Hook and Joe. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we got Hook, Joe, and Shibata
Right.
as like a trios champion, or the learning tree. Like it could be anyone at this point. It's kind of just one of those like tertiary titles that AEW has
Mm-hmm.
that you could throw on anyone for a nice moment or just a fun match.
Right. And then let's talk about the other big match on the show that we haven't really talked about yet, which is MJF and Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay won the international championship. All right, get that right. Won the international championship. Great match. I don't have a ton to say about it. He had the Tiger Driver. Will we didn't think he was going to do it, but he did it.
He did it. I
He
mean,
did it.
we kind of thought he was going to do
Yeah,
it. Let's be honest.
yeah, we did.
It was a cool moment for Will Ospreay. I did enjoy the Dynamite match a lot more than this,
Mm.
but I thought it was a great way to build to this match. And apparently, this is what I didn't know: the Dynamite Diamond Ring being stolen wasn't a storyline. Like it actually legitimately got stolen, and they used the Daniel Garcia thing to cover it up.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, they were like, they don't know where it is. There's reports that they actually don't have the Dynamite Diamond Ring, so they just threw in that whole Daniel Garcia thing later. I did like that Daniel Garcia came in to
Yes.
distract MJF. I thought that was a good moment. It's going to lead into their all out match, which should be interesting. And yeah, it was the right winner. It was a great moment for Will. I was happy to see him. It was great to see how happy he was, especially at the post
Yeah.
or the post all out in Scrum. Jesus,
Oh,
I'm
that's
so
another
out of
gripe
it,
I
but
have with this. Now Will Ospreay's going to face Pac.
yeah.
Pac just
Well, I
won a
mean,
singles title.
that's not that big of a deal. I think Will Ospreay products could be off the charts, and I
Oh,
don't
for
think it
sure.
hurts
But
that. I have a bigger problem with Jack Perry winning the TNT or retaining the TNT championship and then going after Brian Danielson for the AEW
yes,
championship. Like that to me is like because
yeah,
I think if you have a singles title, it doesn't make sense to go after another singles title.
right.
I don't mind a trios champion going after a singles title. I think you had that before
But it
with
just to me is an indicator that they don't have like they don't have plans. There's
That's
no
right. I
like,
think it's more of an indicator that there's just too many damn belts on the show.
well,
That
yeah.
like we just have like it seems like everyone. It's like 50% of
Mhm.
the like main people on the roster have belts, even though you had this like 16-man tag with literally everyone they couldn't fit on the card in the
Yeah,
pre-show, and then they had another 10-man tag with another 10 wrestlers that they couldn't fit on the show, and it's like
and they're still signing people.
right, and they're still signing people, and then so it's like, but outside of those people, it feels like it's like there's like a good 30 to 40% chance that if you're on the main show, you have a title.
Yeah. I actually did enjoy the coffin match between Darby and Jack. I thought that was fun, violent, which we
Yeah.
expected.
Well, they had their time cut, so it was kind of tricky for them, but they got
Still
the
went a long time.
still it came in at 10 minutes, but
Felt
I
longer.
think it was well felt because they had Sting at the end come out, have his
Mm,
moment, which I think is a great spot for Sting. I think that works for Sting coming in, being kind of like the enforcer, or kind of
mm,
just like the guy who will, lay down the law in case anyone gets out of line, even if you're an EVP,
right.
like just have someone there to beat up dudes. It's a great spot for Sting just in general. And I thought it was great that he got his moment in there
Mm,
once again at Wembley Stadium, even post retirement.
right. Um, Alrighty. I think that's pretty much everything from All In. Great show. Looking forward to All Out, which is very soon. Let's see, it is officially September 7th. So
Yes.
that is very soon. That is like a week
That's next week.
from today.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have any matches for that announced yet?
Yeah,
Yes, we
we got
do.
five. We mentioned Osprey and Pac. Should
Yeah.
be a fun match. We have Willow and Chris, which we didn't mention their all in match,
Mm,
but I thought that was fun. Having Stokely spine buster
mm,
Ishii and then him getting Ishii getting right back up.
yes.
I thought that was a fun little spot. But yeah, they're doing a Chicago street fight.
Right.
That's the stipulation announced.
Because that couldn't have happened on any given Dynamite.
Right. And then Swerve Hangman in a steel cage.
Okay.
Could be a
Support
fun
it.
match. Yeah.
Support that.
Like that one.
Feel like
And
it needs. I feel like we're above a steel cage at this point, though.
I mean, I like the AEW steel cage match. I feel like most of them
Mm.
turn out pretty well. So I
Give
think
me a
this one,
barbed wire steel cage.
maybe, they'll definitely AEW
Yeah.
defy the match for sure, if that's how you want to put it. And then we also have MJF and Daniel Garcia. Should be
Yep.
another interesting
Good.
match.
Good.
And then,
Good.
of course, the title match is Bryan Danielson taking on Jack Perry.
Interesting choices all around.
Yeah, I mean, that's just five matches they have announced. I'm glad that they have 2 weeks to build the show up instead of just one,
Mm.
because last year just felt rushed and the card kind of fell apart, especially after all the CM Punk stuff.
Mm.
But they ended up having not a terrible show from what I remember. I remember them for what it was. It was a good show, but it was just tough to get a good build
Yeah.
going. So at least they have some matches announced. They still have another week to get people excited for All Out. But yeah, should be interesting. And we'll definitely have predictions for
Next week.
that next week.
All right. Well, let's wrap up this show talking about some of the highlights from AEW Dynamite from this past week. We never get a chance to talk to you about Dynamite. Okay. But this is a treat for you guys because we have some things to talk about here. First and foremost, I feel like I know what you want to end on. So let's talk about this first.
Okay.
Bryan Danielson acknowledges that he has won the AEW championship and will not retire yet. He is doing the Ric Flair '08, where the next time he loses the title, he will retire. So the end is near. The end is near. Um, I think we know where this is heading, and I do not think. Well, wait till next week to see if we think he's going to retire and all out with Jack Perry. But I thought that was a good. I just think this is the proper way to handle this.
Yeah, I actually think it's going to add a lot to this title reign
Mm,
where every title defense is like, oh my goodness, he's going to
mm,
retire. I think, it'll be a good match with Jack Perry. Obviously, I don't think this is the match where he
mm,
retires. I really hope not.
mm.
But obviously, it makes sense. Jack Perry, Bryan Danielson, we didn't mention this element in Chicago.
Oh,
So Jack Perry is probably going to get a certain type of reaction. I don't know if those AEW fans still show up to the show that would hijack it, but
no.
if they were to hijack it at any AEW show, it would be the one in Chicago.
Can I
Um,
can I can I throw something by you that I just think would be absolutely hilarious? No shot of it happening, but I think would be incredible.
sure.
What if Jack Perry in Chicago comes out to Cult of Personality?
See, I was thinking about it. I think what it should be is just play the static. Because I don't know if they have the
Mhm.
rights to cult personality, but
Mhm.
definitely do like the ksh, ksh, and then
Yeah.
do that. Or
Come out like in the trunks, in the kick
come out to
pads.
the trunks, come out to AFI. Could you
Yeah.
imagine? That would
Mhm.
be kind of hilarious.
I think that would be incredible on his end.
Do they got the rights to Kill Switch Engage, This Fire
Maybe.
Burns? That would be kind of fun.
That'd be hilarious. But yeah, if he literally came out like in CM Punk cosplay would be next level trolling.
Yeah.
I would
And that
love
would
it.
definitely heat up the match 20 times because I don't think anyone would buy him winning. But I
Mhm.
think if they saw him come out to that, then they would just be on fire the whole match.
And Punk's gonna talk about it on Twitter and
Sure. I mean, he won't talk, but he'll just say something cheeky. I know,
yeah.
you know who will say something? Drew will.
Yes.
Drew will 100% say something like, that's my
Yeah.
guy. Or like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Didn't he
we'll
take a
just,
picture with Jack recently?
yes, he did. It might have been at Fanatics Fest,
Yeah.
or they might have just been in the same, or
Mm.
maybe it was SummerSlam weekend. No, it was SummerSlam weekend when
Mm.
they were linked up. But yeah, no, I could see Drew mentioning something or even Punk throwing in like a
Mm.
sly shot, but I think it's just so past them at that point, at least
Mm.
Drew and Punk.
Do you think
Uh,
people understood the glass reference in their match at all? In
yeah, of course, because it was last year.
yeah, I don't know.
But
I feel like it
it's
would.
hard to get that reaction at a stadium show, being like, "Whoa!" And everybody's
Yeah,
blessed. They were chanting "Cry Me a River" at the show, but that was even before the glass was introduced. So
gotcha.
it is what it is.
And then anything else from this show you want to talk about?
Well, before we get to the main talking point, we did have Ricochet's Dynamite debut, where he
Oh
had a
right,
solid match against Kyle Fletcher, but then we teased Will Ospreay and Ricochet. So at least I feel like that was the bigger push than
yes,
the actual match itself. Just being like, okay, Ricochet, as soon as you put him in, get him in the match that everyone wants to see.
yeah,
Him and Will Ospreay, or at least tease it. Because I think that might be the match for Wrestle Dream, as you get. Because
yeah.
Wrestle Dream's all about dream matches, Ricochet, Will Ospreay at this stage of their careers. That's the match you want to see.
I wouldn't hate a Will Ospreay Ricochet tag team.
Oh yeah, that could be fun. And honestly, if they need something to heat up the tag division,
Mm.
do them and the Young Bucks. That would kind of be like fire match.
Yeah.
I would like that a lot. And then there's actually one more because I'm just scrolling through some of these results.
Mm.
You had MJF denouncing his American citizenship and saying the only place that matters is Plainview, Long Island, New York, of course, denouncing all other towns and cities in Long Island and just going for Plainview. Good for
Yep.
him. Also, just the rest of the country as well. I'm always tickled by that. And then you had this weird, like, 2019 WWE segment with Mercedes Moné in Private Party,
Mm-hmm.
where Isaiah Cassidy was trying to flirt. Okada shows up, it kind of puts a stop to it, and then they do the little CEO dance. The back, just the set alone, I was kind of like, "What is this? Where are we
Yeah.
right now?" It
Well,
just
they're
felt
going to
weird.
what we thought, where Mercedes in the elite, which we love.
Yeah, I do like that. I do like the pairing a lot. I just thought the segment was really weird.
Mm-hmm.
But now we'll get to the main thing I want to talk about here. Jon Moxley making his return to AEW
Did not
Dynamite.
win the casino gauntlet,
Did not win the
unfortunately.
Casino Gauntlet, but then
Damn
saves
it.
him for this show here, post All In. And he had some words to say. He was calling out Darby Allin, which is interesting, so considering he was put in a coffin. But I'm curious to see where that goes. But ultimately, the line,
Considering he's dead.
yeah. uh, the thing that everyone's talking about though is when he went back on the microphone, looked at Tony Schiavone and said, "It's going to take some time for everybody to wrap their head around this or wrap their brain around this. This isn't your company anymore." And then he drops the microphone and walks out. Later on, we get a segment where he takes out some security backstage alongside a returning Marina Shafir, which was okay, random, but sure. So they're going to take over. It should be interesting. He said he wants to teach everyone a lesson in humility, but the line of him saying it's not your company anymore has a lot of people believing that cha-ching, here comes the
Here
money.
comes the money.
And do you think this is a partnership between Jon Moxley, Marina Shafir, and Shane McMahon in AEW. I did not have this anywhere on my bingo card for 2024.
If that
What
is the
say you?
if that is the case, Will, then this might be go down as one of the oddest pairings. Moxley and Shane McMahon are the antithesis of each other. Why the hell would they be working together? If anything, Moxley should be the guy who's pro AEW, being like, I was with this company from day one. I essentially am the reason this company got like super popular. You're not taking over my freaking company, Shane O'Mac. Go back to WWE, you bum. Um, so the fact that he's potentially playing the role of like Shane's enforcer is weird to me. This is not the spot if this is what's happening. I think it's so odd, such an odd pairing.
But
And
Jason, you have to understand that John Moxley loves death jitsu. That's his thing. And Marina Shafir, of course, has been causing all sorts of problems. She is the problem. And she,
okay,
of course, has an MMA background. And
right?
who, all those years ago during the pandemic, wanted to start an underground fight ring on Monday Night Raw in the last hour of the show? Shane McMahon. So they're going to start AEW Underground, and that's going to be the big showing. If you want to really prove yourself, we're going to have strippers. We're going to have a 7 foot tall guy. Satnam Singh's going to be the enforcer of the AEW Underground. And I think that's where this is all heading. We're going to have AEW Underground.
God, I hope not. This is that it's a if this is really how they're introducing Shane, truthfully, in all seriousness, if this is how they're introducing Shane, it's dead on arrival. Um, this is bad if this is what they're doing. Moxley and Shane McMahon, that's your partnership.
I
Like,
will. I'll say this: it's not the direction I would go in, but I would give it a shot. I would have to see it first for them to be like. But if it is going to be that direction of like we're like the real fighters, like I don't buy that with Shane McMahon. I don't. I think I'd rather see Shane with the Elite than have
yes,
Shane be involved with John Moxley. And I still think Marina Shafir is just such a weird choice for this. I've
yeah,
heard other people float around Ronda Rousey. I
no,
don't think
she's
she wants
no
to come
interest in
back to
coming back.
wrestling. Yeah, even if it's AEW, I don't think that's happening. But at least it would make more sense than Shane McMahon.
Yeah, that's true. This is a fever dream. Um, I don't know. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. But
We'll see. It seems like
this,
we always end these top rope takes with some Shane McMahon talk. So once it finally happens, we'll have to open the show with Shane McMahon.
all right. Well, let's end the show with give me one top rope take for the week.
Ooh. Do you have you always give this to me at the end, and I'm like, oh man, I haven't really thought of anything. But do you have something in mind here?
I have a couple.
Okay.
I can come up with something. Top rope take is Daniel Bryan, Swerve Strickland, main event of AEW All In 2 from Wembley, or All In 3. No, it's All In 2. AEW All In 2 from Wembley is the greatest match of Daniel Bryan's career.
Wow. Okay. You know what? Let's go on that because I actually had a question I wanted to throw
Mm,
out to you. I'm not going to do a top row
mm,
take, but I'm curious.
mm.
What was the better moment? Daniel Bryan winning at WrestleMania 30 or Bryan Danielson winning the AW championship at All In?
I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's WrestleMania 30.
Okay. I
WrestleMania
think,
is bigger, quite frankly. Let's call it what it is. It is.
yeah.
The real history, the real story behind it is more interesting because he was not supposed to be in that spot, and the fans quite literally forced the creative's hand and made them put him in that spot, which was great. Um, it was a first world title win. I think it's got everything
No,
going for
it
it.
wasn't the first world title, but
Oh, right. It wasn't.
but it was still a big moment. Here's
Mm,
where what I'll say because I do think it's tough to compare these two, like
mm,
just moment for moment, because it's different. It's totally different context. The booking and just the actual build to WrestleMania 30 is so much different than the build here because you kind of expect going into the AEW
mm.
match. And I'm not going to take away anything from the moment because it was awesome this past weekend. So I don't want this to downplay what happened this past weekend. but you kind of expect that Tony Khan isn't going to make the decision to retire Bryan Danielson. If Bryan Danielson had lost this past weekend, it would have been on Bryan Danielson's accord.
Right.
We would have known that this was his decision. Whereas WrestleMania 30, it felt like the fans were actively fighting WWE, not just for those 3 months, but for the past like 3 or 4 years when it came to the constant pushing down of John Cena in our throats. Like that was like the peak wrestling fans do not like John Cena era. That's
Yeah.
why we had like the CM Punk thing blow up, the pipe bomb. It's because it finally felt like there was a voice for us people who just really didn't like John Cena and still is pushed out. Randy Orton was constantly in the main event picture. So when they were proposing this idea of Randy versus Batista, it felt like we were just completely thrown off to the side. And so for us to finally, for them to just listen to us and have that play into the storyline, it felt more cathartic for Daniel Bryan to win that match against Triple H, to win the triple threat. Because even while that stuff was happening, even while he was in the main event, he had just been Triple H, there was still part of you like, I've been screwed so many times in the past. Like they could still do it. And there was a near fall in that triple threat match where you're like, no, please. There's no way they're going to do this. It was like, I think it was the one where Batista like shoved Randy Orton out of the way and got the pin. And everyone was like, oh no, please. Like, are they just really going to do this to us right now? And then he kicks out. Whereas in the AEW match, while it was a great match, I just didn't buy fully that Swerve was going to win while the match was happening. There was moments where I was like, oh man, they're really throwing a lot at Bryan Danielson. Like,
I didn't think it was implausible.
Crazy. It wasn't implausible, but like there was nothing that truly made me think like, oh crap, like this is it for Bryan Danielson. Even when he was hit with like the JML driver after like 3 house calls, I was like, is this like, I just don't fully buy that. And then he kicks out and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Whereas I had that genuine moment in the WrestleMania 30 match. And granted, I was 10 years younger, but I was just like, no, please, God, like don't.
No, God, no. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not taking anything away from the AEW moment, but that WrestleMania 30 moment was just like, it felt like we were at war. Like it felt like we were in the match too, like against WWE. And we finally got something that we wanted. Hopefully, though, the AEW match has a better fallout and title reign than the Daniel Bryan title win.
Yes. All right, real quick before we wrap this up. Who is going to retire Daniel Bryan? Bryan Danielson. Who's going to retire Bryan Danielson to win the AEW World title?
Shane McMahon.
All right, well, that does it for Top Rope Takes.
No, I mean, man, I would like to see it be.
I think I know.
I think I honestly, Kenny Omega. I would go Kenny Omega.
Cool.
Unless you want to do he's not an AEW guy. I think the other option would be Zack Sabre Jr. But I would go Kenny Omega because I feel like that's a safer bet.
I am going Jon Moxley.
Okay.
So Tacoma, Washington, Wrestle Dream, October 12th, I think.
All right.
So
we'll see, brother.
I think that's where it all ends. Wrestle Dream, where Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson will.
So he can wrestle John Cena next year. Retirement tour.
Brother. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Top Rope Takes. Lots of them. We got more coming for you next week. We will have all out predictions, Bash in Berlin recap. So this train is moving.
Yes, sir.
Will, another great episode. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Of course.
We will see you all next week.